Hello friends. See, some people have misconceptions about the entries of the property in the revenue records. And I am going to clarify those misconceptions in this video. This video is so important that though I already made a video on the same subject in Hindi language, I am also making this video in English for my English audience friends as promised by me in that Hindi video. So friends, many times people think that once their name appears in the revenue records regarding a property, then that mutation entry is the evidence of their ownership of that property. Like Satbara, Utara, that means 712 extract, Satbara, Utara, as we call it in Maharashtra. Or with regard to urban properties, it can be property card or corporation records, etc. Now, though this thinking is not wrong, it is still not always correct. How? Please understand carefully. Many times I have to explain to my clients that just because your name appears in the revenue records, you do not become a property owner. Just because of that fact, you cannot prove ownership of the property in the court. To prove ownership of the property, you will have to provide or to lead evidence of how you became the owner of that property. Getting me? The entries in the revenue records are merely a reflection of your ownership. The reverse does not happen. That means your ownership is not the reflection of the entries in the revenue records. So friends, there is a judgment of the Supreme Court highlighting this point. And today in this video, I'm going to explain that judgment to you in an easy and simple way. So please understand carefully. Suppose your father donated a piece of land owned by him to the government through a valid gift deed for some noble cause. And imagine, after 3 or 4 decades later, you find out that in the government records, your family name is still mentioned as the owner. What does this mean for you regarding ownership of that property? Can that revenue record related to the property prevail over a valid legal document? In this case, gift deed made by your father. Can the effect of that valid deed be negated by a revenue entry? Are you still the owner of that property because your family's name is still mentioned in the revenue records? Something similar happened in that Supreme Court case. Let's find out the answer to these questions in that judgment of the Supreme Court, about which I am now going to tell you. The case that I am discussing today is the case of State of Punjab versus Bhagwant Pal Singh. The case is cited at 2024 Live Law SC page 479. And that's why I thank Live Law in this video. Apart from the aspect of relationship between revenue records and ownership rights, this judgment of the Supreme Court also throws light on many other important aspects. What are those? Number 1, of course, the relationship between revenue records and the property rights. Number 2, the importance of taking legal action within the limitation period given in the law. Number 3, who will have to discharge the burden of proof in this kind of property dispute? And one more important aspect also covered in the judgment is what mistakes should be avoided while drafting a civil suit. This last one will be especially helpful for young advocates. If you are interested in reading the full judgment, check the description of this video. But first, please understand the things I am explaining in a simple way. So let's understand the facts of the case, main points of the judgment, and the legal principles emerging from it. What happened? In 1958, a landowner, whom I will call the transferor, donated a piece of land to the state of Punjab. Now that donation was given through a valid gift deed. And the purpose of the donation was to build a veterinary college and hospital. After receiving this land as a gift through a valid gift deed, the Punjab government built a veterinary college and hospital, and it started functioning in 1959. Now, during this entire period, during his entire lifetime, the transferor never raised any objection to the state taking possession of or building and running the hospital on that land. Now, fast forward to the year 2001. 43 years after the donation, the transferor's son filed a civil suit in the court claiming possession of the donated land. His argument before the trial court was based on the fact that his father's name was still recorded in the revenue records, known as Jamabandi. He argued that this meant that the property still belonged to the family. The lowest court, that means the trial court, accepted his claim. That means the man's son succeeded in the trial court. So against the decision of the trial court, the state of Punjab went in appeal before the district court in first appeal. And the district court, the first appellate court, allowed the appeal of state of Punjab. That means reversed the decision, the decree of the lower court. The man's son lost. Saddened by that, the man's son went to the High Court and filed a second appeal in the High Court. Now, the High Court allowed his second appeal and rejected the judgment of the first appellate court. That means the man's son won again. See how interesting twists and turns are there. Then the state of Punjab reached the Supreme Court with an appeal against the High Court's decision. Now, to understand what I'm explaining to you, it is not necessary to go into what arguments took place in the trial courts, in the first appeal court, and in the second appeal before the High Court. For the point that I'm explaining to you, it is important to understand what happened in the Supreme Court. Therefore, I'll directly talk about what happened in the Supreme Court. In the intervening period, the son died. So the matter was pursued in the Supreme Court through the legal representatives of the son. Okay. So in the appeal by the Punjab government, what was the decision by the Supreme Court? Now understand carefully, because that's what I'm trying to explain to you. The Supreme Court made it clear that the entries in the revenue records do not confer property rights. Revenue records are maintained primarily for administrative purposes, such as tax collection by the municipal council or municipal corporation, or land revenue collection by Gram Sabha. They are not definitive proof of the rights of ownership. The Supreme Court emphasized that when a property is transferred through a valid legal document, such as a gift deed in this case, the transferee, that means the person to whom the transfer is made, is considered to be the owner of the property irrespective of whether or not the revenue records have been updated to reflect this change in ownership. The Supreme Court said that the state's failure to update the revenue records does not cancel the ownership rights conferred upon the state under the deed, even then the rights of ownership of the state remain intact. In this case, the state's negligence in not updating the records did not affect the state's ownership of the property. So despite this administrative lapse on the part of the state, the rights under the gift deed remained intact. And that is what I told you in the beginning of this video. Let me repeat. In other words, the entries in the revenue records are merely a reflection of your ownership. The reverse does not happen. Your ownership is not the reflection of the entries in the revenue records. Is it clear to you now? I'm sure it must have become clear. And if you like knowing all this, then what are you waiting for? Just like, share and subscribe to the channel. This will give it a boost so that maximum people can benefit from this knowledge. And now there is more to come, so just stay tuned. The next point has something to do with being vigilant about your rights and approaching the court in a timely manner. The Supreme Court also ruled that the plaintiff's claim for possession was barred by statute of limitation. See, according to Section 65 of the Limitation Act 1963, a suit for possession of a movable property must be filed within 12 years from the date of adverse possession of the plaintiff. Now in that case, State of Punjab, I think, raised the plea of adverse possession also. So here, the cause of action arose in 1981 when the plaintiff admitted that he had knowledge of the functioning of the hospital. But he filed the lawsuit in 2001, almost after 2 decades. So that was barred by limitation. That was what was held by Supreme Court. So it's important that you approach the courts in a timely manner. Apart from this, the Supreme Court also clarified the issue of burden of proof. Supreme Court reiterated, now this means repeated or stressed, that under Section 110 of the Evidence Act 1872, the burden of proof lies on the person challenging the owner's property rights. And in this case, it was the plaintiff's responsibility. That means the man's son's responsibility to prove his ownership claim. But the lower courts made a mistake in placing this burden of proof on the state of Punjab. Supreme Court corrected it. Then the Supreme Court dealt with another important aspect, which may be of immense importance to young advocates. And that was regarding drafting of the plaints in the civil suit. Supreme Court criticized the plaintiff, that means the respondent before the Supreme Court, the man's son side, for the very vague drafting of the plaint in which the important details were not mentioned. When was the hospital constructed? When did the plaintiff became aware of the hospital's existence and other relevant facts? See friends, on this channel itself I have posted around 8 to 10 videos on fundamentals of drafting. If you are interested in knowing how to draft a civil suit or how to understand the basics of drafting, please go to that playlist of drafting and watch all the videos one by one. And you will find one video dealing with material facts, how to draft, how to identify and draft material facts. Material facts are so important that if they are not pleaded, you will not win or you will not get the claim. Your suit will become weak. And the court was talking about these material facts. So the plaintiff's doing so was seen by the Supreme Court. I mean, doing so means not pleading the material facts, which I just now mentioned. The Supreme Court viewed it as an attempt to circumvent the time period in the Limitation Act and to strengthen his claim even though it was legally untenable. So friends, now it's possible that there may be many other people like you who may also have this misunderstanding. And while laboring under such misunderstanding or misconception, they may be wandering in the wrong direction regarding their property rights. Therefore, I have an appeal for you. To help them too, please share this video as much as possible. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Till then, bye and take care.